Welcome to Etheria, a new Pokemon fan region based off of the Sword Coast in Dungeons & Dragons. I've wanted to make my own fan region for a while now, and originally I wanted to base it off of the state of Rhode Island, or maybe just the New England states in the US in general, since that's where I'm from. But whenever I would actually sit down to brainstorm Pokemon, there was always a Hasbro-sized problem that I just couldn't get away from. So I decided to pivot, and here we are in Etheria. Since Etheria is based off of D&D, the setting and the story of the region are based in a more classical fantasy setting. Centuries ago, Etheria was a grand magical empire where everybody had the ability to use magic. And with magic, they built an advanced civilization of unparalleled technology. I'm thinking a combination of like Eberron and Piltover from League. But for reasons that you'll uncover, magical creatures known as Pokemon started to appear, and as their population grew, our ability to use magic gradually faded. And Pokemon, who were once seen as a curiosity, became an essential part of everyday life. So Etheria now is more like a traditional D&D setting, but with some random pieces of technology that still exist. So if we think of something like Final Fantasy IX, or maybe something like Trigon, where you have all these big space generators powering little tiny towns. And while most people have lost the ability to use magic, there is a small percentage of the population that can tap into some of that ancient power to enhance their Pokemon in different ways, which we'll explain later on. And it's these new mages that I'm calling Arcanists that act as the traditional adventurers in a tabletop game. So even though youngster Joey can catch his Rattata, it'll never truly be a top percentage Rattata. All of the Pokemon in the region are going to be based off of D&D monsters, races, classes, and honestly, Baldur's Gate characters. And just one more thing before we talk about the starters. If you made it this far in the video and you like the sound of my voice or maybe what I'm talking about, you should really consider hitting that subscribe button. The only way that I'm going to be able to continue to make videos like this one is with all of your support, and the best way to show your support is just by hitting that button. And maybe leaving a comment, it would mean a lot to me. But anywho, let's get into it. Sorry, just one more note before we get started. All of these Pokemon were brought to life by trainer Matt over on Instagram. I'll link his page in the description down below. When designing the starters, I knew I wanted to go with 3 different magic classes, so for the grass starter, I decided to go with a Moon Druid for inspiration. If you don't play D&D, Moon Druid specializes into transforming into all sorts of stuff, but mostly animals. And while a Druid can transform into like literally hundreds of different things, there is one particular bear that comes to mind.
A true friend of nature. Or perhaps a lunatic.
Let me introduce you to Kabark, the Grove Pokemon. Most of their body is covered in moss to help them absorb sunlight for extra energy, and its tail is a giant oak leaf, which is the symbol for Sylvanas, the Forest Father, who is the patron god for druids in the Forgotten Realms. Kabark are eager to help and often act as guardians for weaker forest and grassland Pokemon, defending them from predators. Upon reaching level 16, Kabark evolves into Ursark. Ursark are often seen near small remote settlements, guiding and defending those who wander into dangerous parts of their forest homes. When they evolve, they also gain the fairy type to help illustrate their connection to nature as well as the Feywild. Plus, there haven't been any grass fairy starters. Small bits of bark armor start to cover their body, and their horns are more developed. And finally, at level 36, Ursark evolves into the mighty Sylvanor. These massive Pokemon have bark and thorn armor covering their bodies. Sylvanor clear out dead parts of forest to create safe havens for both people and Pokemon that would otherwise be dangerous or uninhabitable. And this 100% leads into the, daddy implications of a certain bear elf. Moving on to the fire starter, I wanted to go with an evocation wizard because if a fire starter isn't the one screaming fireball, then I don't know who is.
I cast fireball.
Dude,
I cast fireball.
why? What is that gonna accomplish?
It's gonna help. I'm gonna cast fireball. It's gonna help.
I guess he does.
Fireball solves every situation.
Okay, yeah.
I also wanted to go with something that would be a traditional familiar for wizards in Dungeons & Dragons. And while in hindsight, a fire crab would have been absolutely hilarious, I went with a cat because there's a certain other wizard who loves his magic cat.
Tara is not any cat. She's a Tressum. And given your confusion, I'm guessing you've never met one. They're brilliant creatures. Fine company for any self-respecting wizard.
Anywho, here's Flarekit, the blue flame Pokemon. While Flarekit look playful, they have trouble regulating the heat that they give off. So much trouble, in fact, that often Flarekit's excess fire energy is stored and then used to heat small communities and their native mountain homes. The tuft of fur on its chest resembles a multi-pointed star, which is the symbol of Mystra, the goddess of magic. On level 16, Flarekit evolves into Flashinx. Also, with this new evolution, it gains the Ice type. I went with Ice because there's literally no Pokemon with this type other than Galarian Darmanitan, and that's only when it's in Zen mode. Ice is also the second most common evocation spell type in D&D, and in a lot of RPGs, Fire and Ice are usually the two elemental options for most mages. The excess fur on their back and shoulders are shaped to be similar to a mage's robe, and they have a small icicle wand showing that they now have perfect temperature control. Flashings and their trainers explore dungeons and ruins in search of lost ancient artifacts. And on level 36, Flashings evolves into Magmeowser. These Pokemon often live in isolation in forgotten ruins and temples, studying the ancient arcane artifacts they've been hoarding throughout their lives. Their destructive power is almost unparalleled in the world of Etheria. Their long furs continue to grow into more of a robe shape, and their ears have also grown in size to help them hear incoming threats from deep within the dungeons that they've made their homes, and also because Wizard Hat. Their stats have also grown to help them navigate these ruins and act as the occasional reading light. And finally, we have our water starter. And I had a few different ideas here, but with keeping in line of each of them being a magic user, I decided to go with a Tempest Cleric. Tempest Clerics can use martial weapons and armor in addition to using devastating weather and lightning attacks, so I thought it'd be a really cool mixed attacker. So let's introduce Tide Pup, the Tempest Pokemon. Coastal fishermen rely on Tide Pup's ability to sense and redirect water on stormy days. I went with a wolf here because of the relationship wolves have with the moon and the moon controlling the tides. There's also another certain BG3 companion who may or may not have a connection to Saloon, the goddess of the moon.
I may be a hater and a gatekeeper, but I'm also God's favorite princess and the most interesting girl in the world.
On level 16, Tide Pup evolves into Tempowl, gaining the electric type. I still can't believe there's only one water electric Pokemon line. Obviously, this typing also fits Tempest Clerics perfectly, but it also shows the storm within the Tempowl themselves. They find it nearly impossible to control their newfound electric powers, and are almost constantly creating or attracting storms unless they burn off that excess energy in battle, and this makes them very aggressive. As a result, the fishing and coastal villages that they assisted as pups send them out to sea so they can learn how to control their powers. Originally, I was considering something like Tiger from Monster Rancher for the design, but it felt weird to have a moonwolf not be a werewolf. And you can still see Tiger's inspiration with the blue and the white, but I really like this Lucario Bolton fusion. And finally, after reaching level 36, Tempowl evolves into Lycanite. Despite its long claws and sharp features, Lycanite are incredibly calm and serene creatures. Now in full control of their elemental powers, they return to their coastal cities and villages where they can begin the cycle anew. I really love that all the lightning accents make it look like it's wearing armor. And this meditative stance, despite the fact that it is literally the embodiment of a storm, 10 out of 10. There you have it, the 3 starter Pokemon for the Etheria region, a Dungeons & Dragons Pokemon region. I really hope that you liked them, and if you did, you should let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite. You should also let me know what other D&D monsters, races, and classes you'd like to see as Pokemon. Ideally, I'd like to make an entire Pokedex of these things and maybe even some D&D homebrew, so any support you can give me would be absolutely amazing. Which leads me into this. If you made it this far and you're not subscribed, hit the button. You know you want to. It'd be great if you did. But anywho, I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.